Welcome to the Divinely Human podcast. I am Aleisha.
And I'm Tanita.
This podcast is where deep dives and real life collide.
Where we open the sealed section from the cosmic to the chaotic. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode. We are very happy to be here this morning. This week, we are going to be diving into the topic of pregnancy and spirituality, and I guess just touching on both of our journeys with that in a way, and how we've both navigated that, because it was actually a question put forward by, well, not a question, but a topic put in by one of our community members, and I feel like it is something that we actually haven't dedicated a whole episode to yet, but it is something that is really, really potent for both of us, because I know that there was a lot activated for the both of us moving through pregnancy. So I'm excited to dive into this with you.
Yes, me too. This topic was so good. And I mean, as you guys all know, I'm pregnant at the moment. So I feel like I'm going through this whole new wave again, which has really been so interesting. But I was thinking about this the other week, and I meant to ask you, Aleisha, but I haven't. I just didn't get around to it. But when you were pregnant, can you remember if your third eye was just like buzzing constantly? Because for the first 12 weeks, I kid you not, there was more times where it was literally tingling than not. I'm like so curious to hear if that was for you as well.
That was a huge thing for me, and it's something that I felt really weird speaking to other people about, because I'm
Yes,
like,
literally.
is it just me? Like, am I just making? I almost felt like I was making it up.
Yeah.
But I remember it really, really strongly, especially with my first, as opposed to my second. But maybe it's just something that I was a little bit more aware of, because I felt like I was already very much working in the spiritual realm when I had my second child. So definitely with my first, when I was young, I was like, whoa, this is insane. Like, it's such a strange sensation, because it is very physical as well, which is what was really tripping me out.
Yes, literally same. Because when it happened just a couple of weeks ago, it's kind of fizzled off now that I'm over that 12-week mark. But
Yeah.
when it was
Yeah, that was
happening,
just the start.
it was so intense. And I was like, like trying to look in the mirror to see if there was like anything on my head or like, this is crazy. But I did have it with Madeline too. But I feel like this one has been really intense, which is
I
fascinating.
I have a feeling that it is to do with the soul that you are
Oh,
carrying.
yeah. Mm.
I just have a feeling about it, because I feel like depending on what pregnancy you're moving through, I genuinely feel like some carry different purposes.
Yeah.
So I really do feel like when you do have that third eye buzzing, it is because there's something that really wants to come through, and that little soul that you're carrying is helping to kind of like, they are the facilitator, really, when you look at it. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So I find that really interesting, like how
Yeah.
we've had different experiences of it with different pregnancies as well. I just think that that's really fascinating, and I'd love to hear anyone who's listening to this as well. Use the chat or the voice record function on Spotify. I think you can pop that through there, because I want to know. Please, please, please let us know if you have moved through a pregnancy and you've also had this tingling or buzzing in your third eye area. Please tap down there, let us know, because I'm really curious to see how many other women have felt this and experienced this sensation as well.
Yeah, I'm sure we're not the only ones, but
No.
again, I was experienced that like, what if she thinks I'm loopy? Like, what if I tell other people? And they're just like, no, that's just a you thing. That's not like an us thing. Like, but yeah, it's really, really fascinating. I'd be so curious to hear what other things happen throughout your pregnancies that were intricately connected with spirituality? Because I have found, like, of course, when you're pregnant, your senses are really open. But for me, it's also around like being able to connect to my spiritual senses. That's really heightened for me.
Mm.
I'm curious, what about you?
So, one of the most prominent things would have to be my dreaming state.
Yeah.
And I know that people say, like, oh, they're just pregnancy dreams. No, no. Like, the
Yeah.
like prophetic dreams that I was having, but also I'm pretty sure that they weren't actually dreams. I'm pretty sure that I was actually astral traveling throughout both
Yes.
pregnancies because of how physical they were, to the point where in my dreams I could feel and touch things and have like a physical
Wow.
sensation. It was insane. So the dreaming, that whole dreaming realm was huge for me. And they were quite like spiritual dreams as well,
Mm-hmm.
that had to do with like how my body was connected to the universe and how like everything worked and how we're all like connected and intertwined, and it was just like this, it was like a revelation every time I closed my eyes to go to sleep. But apart from that as well, just the like the all over activation that I felt throughout both of my pregnancies. It's just been, I know that we're constantly moving out of spiritual activation and our own journey and own, we're all kind of like becoming more and more aware, but it is so heightened during pregnancy. And that is a huge thing that came through for me, is that it was like this deep, it was kind of like, it reminded me a little bit of like moving through eclipse season. like because you
Literally.
have like the insane polarity of emotions, and you're so hyper aware and you're very sensitive as well. So like it takes one thing and it can just, yeah, you'll know what it's like. But it's one thing that that was really really like interesting, but also really difficult as well. But I'm so glad
Hmm.
now looking back, because I can see what actually wanted to activate now, and just this understanding of myself, but also the world around me, was really, really heightened throughout my pregnancy. And I came out of it the first time, especially because that was obviously my first like pregnancy that I actually gave birth. And it was, it was really surreal because even though you have that 9 or 10 months of, highs and lows, it feels like you're on a bit of a roller coaster. I also believe that that day that you go through the birthing process, whether that is not like however you want to
Yeah,
birth or
whatever that
however
looks
ends
like.
up happening. My first birth was a cesarean. My second was I birthed naturally. So I have had
Oh,
very different
really?
experiences, but both of them, it was like the day that that happened, it was so heightened, and it was like, it felt like 100 years worth of like awakenings happening in like the space of a few hours. It was so
Yes.
intense. And then
Yes.
like afterwards, when you're holding your baby, it's like you can take, it's almost like you've stepped out of your body at the same time as being so in your body, and you can just see everything. I felt like both times it's like, the meaning of life.
Yeah.
I know that sounds so vague, but it's like the only thing that you're feeling in that moment is oneness and love. And then you realize that that's the only thing that matters in this world, in this existence, in the universe. And then you realize that that is exactly what the universe is like made up and out of, is love and oneness. And
Yeah.
you're like, whoa. So I'm really interested to see how you navigated that, and also like what came through for you and like that was interwoven with spirituality as well. um
Hmm.
because we both, like, I know that we both had our first babies are kind of at the same age too, so it's just super interesting that we were both going through that, like, still sort of like becoming an adult kind of thing, but also doing that journey of motherhood at the same time.
Yeah, for me, like, I remember the day that I gave birth, it was eerie. Like, you know, where everything is just so still and quiet, and it's like you could hear a pin drop and you were just there. And I don't know how to explain it, but I kind of feel like this on full moons where
Hmm.
everything seems so vast, but yet so close at the same time. And you just have that
Yeah.
like feeling of, yeah, like the bigness and the expansiveness of what's about to happen, but also it feels intense. That's what it was like for me because I was in labor for basically 3 days, but active labor for 12 hours. And so it was like, it was weirdly intense, but I also remember just feeling so calm and so
Mm.
like just not reliant, but like fully aware of the fact that my body knows what she's doing. No
Hmm.
matter what happened in the actual birth, like I was supported, I was looked after, and this baby was here. And that was
Hmm.
just such a big revelation because when you're pregnant, yeah, your body's growing and you're connected with the baby's spirit. But when that baby lies on your chest or you hold its hand, it's just that next level of like, ooh, okay, like it
Mm.
all kind of clicks into place. For
Yeah.
me, every pregnancy has been about trusting my body and
Mm.
being able to rely on myself and step into that responsibility, that potential responsibility that's always been there. But this pregnancy, more so than ever, it's been about trusting my body, letting my body heal, and reconnecting to it in a different way. And of course, both my pregnancies, this one and Madeline, have really been about opening up to the parts of myself that I hadn't yet seen. And when I was pregnant with Madeline, as you know, in the past episode, last week's episode, it was about remembering my gifts. And so it was a really intense time. To be honest, it was quite scary because during my pregnancy with Madeline, I would have a lot of visitors unwelcomed in my house. And even after she was born, I would have unconsensual times where I would leave my body and there would be spirits in my room, and it was quite, to be quite honest, it was terrifying. But I
Yeah.
also didn't have the support and the protection in place to navigate that, whereas now I do. And I'm curious to see how this pregnancy will unfold because I feel little drops of like, yes, reconnecting with that part of me, but more so integrating it in a different way in my life. For a lot of these years, it's been about being spiritual in my business, holding space for other people, providing my services for other people. But over the past couple of months, it's been about how can I give back to myself using my own gifts, my own knowledge, my own wisdom, and how can I weave that into my everyday life more and more and more that's not just in my business. So I'm fascinated how that will play out, but that's kind of the beginning of that. And again, I feel like no matter what you plan for your birth, your baby will will know its way and that will unfold in its own beautiful way. And I have a really open minded kind of perspective on that whole process, not to control it, because I think it is one of the most uncontrollable experiences out there. And you partly just have to surrender to it, which is a huge lesson in itself.
Mm. Yeah. I have to say, I've really been aware of the shift in your perception and how you are showing up the last few months.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel it too.
it feels like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, of
Mm,
course, but it feels like you've just gone, hey, I don't really care about like the frills and the pretty shit. I really just want to show up and be this example of living your life from a really full and wholesome place and sharing that and not having to orchestrate it in any kind of way to please anyone else. But in doing that, I feel like you are inspiring so many people to do the same without having to be anyone else except themselves. And I guess intuitively feel that people are really responding to how you are stepping into this, like, this new energy throughout your pregnancy. And it does feel like trust, like, is the root of that, because it's like you are trusting your body, you're trusting your heart, you're trusting your mind, you're trusting, like, exactly what path you're on right now, and knowing that you're showing up in that, and in expressing that, you really are holding this whole, like, this space that feels so new and exciting and so genuine. But you've always been genuine, but it's just kind of another
I know what
facet
you
of your
mean.
genuine self. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
I know
it's just
exactly
another
what you
part
mean.
of you that we are witnessing now, that's like that little bit deeper, that little bit more, like, it's trust. Like,
Yeah,
it
I
just feels
totally
beautiful.
agree. Thank you for that reflection because, yeah, that's such a good way of putting it. And on the weekend, we had 12 of my family members come and join us for a lunch, and we were talking about the baby coming and sharing the gender with them. And feedback from every single one of them is, you are so calm and you seem so at peace. And considering how I was the first time I was pregnant, I was very I was, yes, at peace with the whole process and I was trusting, but there was also a level of like control around the whole thing.
Mm,
I wanted to protect it and I wanted to increase the energy around my pregnancy and I wanted to
yeah.
make it something. I really genuinely did. And for a lot of first time parents, your expectations are super incredibly high and it's a very high energy state to be in. Your mind is constantly on the pregnancy, constantly on what's to be. You're always in this like to and fro about how your life's going to change. That's natural. But for this pregnancy,
Yeah.
it's just being about letting things happen because I know that controlling doesn't always work. And it's funny because um, somebody at lunch yesterday said, "Oh, well, everybody seems happy." And I was like, you know what? Like, I love that, but also it would not bother me in the slightest if anybody was unhappy with today because I'm at that place now where I know I can't control other people's journeys and it's not my responsibility to make them happy. Whereas the first time I held an event when I was pregnant, it was about making sure everybody else was okay. And it's just changed. It's more like I do feel so much more at peace with myself and stepping into that authentic part of me. And again, that's why I don't think we should put pressure on ourselves to be, somebody that we're not or try
Yeah.
and show our whole selves. Authenticity is a journey, and you just have to trust that wave will unfold naturally. Yeah, you get to see parts of yourself that maybe
Yeah.
otherwise you wouldn't have seen before, right?
Yeah. And you're traveling deeper into here,
Hmm.
right? And I wonder, with every pregnancy that you move through, I wonder if it is that, like, you do travel deeper and deeper and deeper. Like, I wonder that. Yeah, because people say that, like, obviously as you get older, you like care a little bit less, and slowly become like less of a people pleaser and all of that. But throughout pregnancy, I think that that's really heightened and really spotlighted. Like, it's like it goes into overdrive of,
Hmm.
you really just don't give a fuck. Like, but not in like, not in a terrible way, but it's like you're in your own little bubble, your own lane. You kind of just doing your own thing. Um, And I would say that I definitely felt that as well compared to my first pregnancy. So my second pregnancy, I really did feel like I was more in that mentality. I don't know whether it was because I was younger
Yeah.
or it was just the pregnancy itself that created that different experience for me, or that was something I was supposed to learn through that specific pregnancy. But yeah, I think that it is a journey. And I really loved what you said about authenticity. It is a journey. It's not just like it's not a decision. Well, it is a
No.
decision, but it's not one you
Yeah.
make overnight, right? It's like,
Mhm.
it's one that you commit to and you ride that out for the rest of your life. Like, and you
Yeah.
just learn how to kind of unwind and undo parts of yourself that maybe you were hanging on to that aren't parts of you, um,
Mm.
and surrender. And the word surrender comes through so much when I think about witnessing you right now. It's like you just, instead of, especially with, what you've been through the last few years, um, and like the loss. And I just think that there has been this huge element of just surrender this time around for you. It's like just trust and surrender. And man, that could speak to so many women because I think, no offense, guys, but women really do, like, we're taught to hold everything together. We're taught to control everything. Like, we are the homemakers, we have to hold the fort, right?
We're the water bearers.
We are, we're the water bearers.
Yeah.
And it's just so hard to then move into this time and place that we're living in right now where we are kind of going back to operating from our heart space, and we're in an environment that doesn't have so many immediate threats, right? So we don't need to be on guard. We don't need to stay at home anymore if we don't want to. Like, the world has changed. But then how do we learn to still surrender while, all of a sudden we don't have all that stuff that we have to make sure that we, need to look after day in, day out? It's like, how do we do that? And I really do feel like moving through pregnancy has helped me, um, just let go and trust myself and trust my body, trust my mind, and trust the choices that I make as well, and really stick to that, and not doubt myself as much. It's like, I don't know about you, but I've become really headstrong when I'm pregnant as well.
Yes, totally. And super protective. Like, I
Yes, like
remember
primal. It's a primal force, isn't
primal
it?
protective. Yeah, totally. And I didn't experience that protectiveness as much with my first pregnancy, but I've had 5 pregnancies, including the one that I'm in now, and every single one I'm getting more and more and more protective. And I think because I was also going through a time where, I was incredibly in that people pleasing and needing my community around me. And so I wanted as much as advice as possible. But now with this pregnancy, it's funny because I'm like, and I literally said this when we were at my family event. I was like, I am not looking for advice. Like, I do not want your opinion. I love you, but like, no, thank you. I'm just sharing. And that's all I want
Yeah.
to do right now. And it's just funny because it's shifted so much. But actually, I wanted to tell you, I saw this TikTok literally a couple of weeks ago, and I have thought about it every fucking day since. And part of me is wants to vomit at the thought of it, but the other part of me looks at it from a spiritual point of view. So I'm really curious to hear about your opinion. Basically, when you get pregnant and the fetus starts growing, there's this DNA swap between the fetus and the mother. And so basically, what happens is you receive DNA from whoever impregnates you, and it can actually change your DNA. So, women who have had like pin straight hair who get impregnated by a curly male will usually, like, sometimes, this is just an example, leave with like really curly hair after the pregnancy. And I was just like, my mind
Oh
is
my
so blown,
goodness.
right? It's
My mind
insane.
is blown.
Mm-hmm. It's an actual thing. You can look it up. I don't know the medical term for it, but it is crazy. So on like a surface level, I'm like, oh my god, that's so gross. Like, imagine you got impregnated by like this really disgusting human being, and you're like, "Bleh." But on the
Ew.
spiritual level, it is so fascinating about
Mm.
the entwinement of energies and just bringing together and making that sacred union. It's just a
Oof.
whole fascinating thing, right?
It is huge and frightening because it's like, wait, so, wait, so let me just clarify. Is it like only if you get pregnant, or is it like every time, like,
No, so here you go. As early as the second week of pregnancy, there is a two-way flow of cells and
oh
DNA
my
between the
God.
fetus and mother. Yeah. And now every time my lovely, beautiful, love of my life fiance does something stupid, I think, oh my god, I hope you have not passed that to me in all of my pregnancies.
Wow, that is crazy. I
It's
am mind blown. I don't even know
crazy.
what to say to that, but just to be like, just mindful who you have kids with, I guess, because
Be
not
mindful who
only
you let
are you,
inside you in general, because you cannot plan pregnancy, you know?
yeah, it's like you're not just having children that might have their traits, but all of a sudden, in that 1 to 2 week of that stage of pregnancy, it's like all of a sudden you are now the carrier of like their them. That's
Literally.
mind blowing. I am absolutely mind blown. I think that that's really frightening, but also so fascinating at the same time. Why don't they get to like? I wish that it could be the other way around, so that we could just
I
like.
know.
I feel like it would benefit them more, to be honest. Sorry, guys, if you're listening, but oh my god.
I know, right? I'm like so curious. After the initial, like, yes, obviously just weirded out by the whole fact, I do want to journey into the Akashic Records and ask about it from a higher level because
Mm.
I think it would be really fascinating as to why that happens. But yeah, I'm like mind blown. And yeah, it's just crazy, isn't it? So
Is it so that
crazy.
we become more understanding and tolerant?
More understanding.
Is it so we're like, oh, I kind of
Oh,
understand them
towards
a little bit
them.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, towards them. I don't know.
I don't know, but I also kind of get the whole like, seed is planted within you. Like that has a whole new meaning now because you are literally
Forever.
carrying his energy forever.
I just think it's not fair. It needs to go both
It's not.
ways.
I agree.
Like I know that there's an energy exchange, like, during
But
when you're
not
making love.
physical.
But yeah, if you get, I don't, there's lots of diagrams you can look up for anyone listening. It's pretty much like this, like figure eight shape of
Hmm.
energy flow that goes through both of you. But it's like, why do we have to carry that forever? No offense, like I love my partner, like, but I just want to be me, I came here to be me.
No. So you want to talk about change, like what pregnancy changes? It literally changes your
Your
DNA. Like
DNA. That's unreal.
it's mad. It
Wow.
is mad.
That is mad. But I need to try to reframe this in my mind because, like, my really protective, like, self is like, I don't want to. I don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
this is my body.
No.
Love you, but this is my body. Wow, that's crazy. Um,
Micro synerism. I don't know how to
ooh,
pronounce
that's what it's called. Microcinerism. Wow. Okay,
it.
guys, you
Hmm.
need to go. Let's go check that out. You need to let us know if you have any traits all of a sudden of your partner after having a baby with them because
Yeah,
insane.
it's pretty
Um,
crazy.
I'm curious. I'm really curious. Did you feel like you kind of had like a huge, like one of your biggest awakenings when you had your first pregnancy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
massively.
me too.
Massively.
Mm.
But when did you find out you were pregnant? Like how long after you were actually pregnant?
I think I found out at 5 weeks I was.
Wow, that's early.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
5 weeks. What about you?
I think I found out probably about 8 or 9 weeks. And the reason why I ask is because there was a period, like, I, I am very connected and in tune with my body. And
Mm-hmm.
what that looks like for me is like when I feel sick or uneasy, I know exactly what is causing that. Like, there's no shadow of a doubt in my mind what could be causing this, like,
Yeah,
unease in my body. And when
yeah,
I was pregnant, I was very mentally unwell, and for that period of time, I didn't know on a conscious level that I was pregnant, and I felt really
mm,
unwell. And I couldn't work out what it was, and it was so weird because I felt so disconnected to what would usually be something very easy for me to pinpoint. And then when the doctor told me that I was pregnant, it like all clicked for me. And it was
yeah.
really fascinating because there were thoughts and moments where I said, "Oh, I better not be pregnant," and I just didn't trust myself. So again, leaning into that whole
The
like trust
trust.
and
Yeah,
yeah lesson. So yeah, it's funny because when you hear like some women just know that they're pregnant on that really conscious level, and
yeah,
that's been me for the rest of my pregnancies. But what about you? Like, did you have that innate knowing?
yeah. I think I knew for probably about 2 weeks
Yeah.
before I actually found out. I think I was just like avoiding it because obviously it wasn't something that I planned.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was a bit scared. And I, at the time, I knew my partner for, I think it was like 4 months.
Oh
So
wow,
it
that's so
was
early.
like 3 to 4 months. So it was really big for us. It was something that we did not have planned at all, or have on the cards for a long time, right? So I was a bit scared. Uh, but yeah, I felt like I was a crazy person because
Hmm.
I almost thought that I was going through like this kind of like this weird mental breakdown because I just kept on
Yes.
seeing things and realizing that um, I wasn't okay with them, like in my immediate environment with my family and things like that. If you guys listened to the podcast, the last two that were out about mine and Tina's journeys, I spoke a little bit about that while I was pregnant, that journey of what was going on at that time. So yeah, I really did. It was something where I was like, I just all of a sudden had this new energy that I'd never felt before to actually stand up for what I felt was right and what I needed to do. And I was like, this isn't me. This is weird. Usually I just put up with shit. And I just knew. I truly, truly just knew. So it is an innate knowing that you feel like, I think probably like 80% of women probably knew before they knew, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if they, yeah, really dug deep, there would be a lot of signs and words coming out of their mouth that they actually did know, and that's what it was for me. And it's
Yeah.
fascinating because, like, I remember there being so many movies coming up with like babies, and I was just noticing babies everywhere. And it's funny how your mind just clocks that, like, and just picks it up so quickly. And I think it is because on some level you are preparing. Like, pregnancy is
Yeah.
a journey of preparation, not
Yeah.
just to be a mother, but to evolve into the next step of your evolution. Because it takes,
Mm.
like with anything, it takes you being who you are today to versus who you need to be tomorrow in order to
Mhm.
overcome that journey. And that's just the same with motherhood, right? Like, we do go on a massive journey of evolution. And I think for those who are very conscious about that journey of evolution, who surrender to it and trust to it and let all of the messiness unfold, it can
Yeah.
be a journey that comes with ease. Not necessarily make it easy, but it can definitely come with a bit more ease than
Yeah.
those who stick their head in the sand and don't want to
Mm.
evolve through that whole process,
Yeah.
which I find really fascinating too, because there are a lot of parents out there that aren't conscious, that aren't awake, treat their poor little kids like absolute crap, and it's awful.
Yeah.
But I think for those of us who are conscious and awake, that journey can be so sacred, whether or not the baby comes.
Yeah. And I think the first step as well is acknowledging the sacredness of the journey as well. Like,
Yeah,
you are literally creating life, and in that moment, you are the universe, right? You are literally creating something, the same thing that happened with the same makeup that when we, obviously when the universe came to be, right? So that in itself is absolutely unreal. But
mm-hmm.
also, I forget where I read this, but I wish I could remember. But I read years and years ago that when you are pregnant, you actually aren't, like, you're here, but you actually aren't here at the same time. So you actually are in that realm of being the bridge between, like, Earth and this life, and like this 3D life here, and the realm of creation, like the quantum. So you spend your whole pregnancy with one foot here, but one foot in this door of quantum creation. And it's no surprise that we move through all of this growth and transformation on a spiritual level, because we are spending like 9 or 10 months in the quantum field, like creating fucking life within us, right? So while we're there, we're not just going to be picking up mothering skills and things like that. Like, we're also going to be in the same space where we do receive universal wisdom and knowledge, and like, it's like a direct line of contact within you, like between you and this quantum field that you are in as well. So it's like you can actually open up and receive. I mean, there's actually no limitations there. Like, end of sentence. Like, that's it. Like, you can open up and receive whatever you would like during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to, I don't know, like, now obviously, like, I felt like even since my last pregnancy, um 4 years ago, I feel like I've obviously grown more, and the more and more that I myself work in the quantum field for my job, and obviously like for my own practices as well, the more that I want to move through pregnancy again, and like go through birth again, because I think it's such an amazing experience, and it's such an honor as well. But also be more aware that I actually have 9 to 10 months of like just being in the fucking quantum field. Like, imagine the things you could do if you're conscious of that.
Yeah,
Like,
totally. You're
I'm
reminding
like,
me. I'm like, this
dude,
is exciting. Yeah,
dude. So
totally.
yeah,
And
I
it
think it's
makes it makes sense
amazing.
why our dreams are so vivid then, and why our intuition
So
is so
vivid.
heightened, and why we're so connected to our
Mm,
psychic senses, because yeah, we're very deeply connected to that. And it's funny because now that you say that, I'm reflecting on just the past 4 months, and I have manifested things so quickly, like
mm,
random stuff too, like wanting a chair to be in a particular part of the house that would not normally have a chair, and a chair being there, like random things like that,
yeah,
as well as like other things in my job. And it's really fascinating you say that, because that connects the dots for me big time.
yeah,
And it's a really honored and sacred journey that we go on. And I think, I've had a really tough time these past 3 months sinking into the whole process. I'm honest. It's only been the last couple of weeks that I've even accepted the fact that I'm pregnant and I can be here,
yeah.
and that's okay. And really leaning into that trust factor.
Hmm.
But for those who struggle with that journey, I also just want to remind them that it's it's not just about the end result, like any journey we ever go on. It is about the whole process. And I believe that every little soul that comes into our life, they do have a gift. We gift each other medicine, energy, remembrance, like all of these things. And
Mm,
I don't think we should take that for granted, like that exchange, no matter how it ends up in at the end of the journey. I
yeah.
just think that's really precious, you know.
Yeah, it is so precious. And I also want to touch on just quickly, because I've moved through this with both of my pregnancies postnatally, is postnatal depression and postnatal anxiety. Um, I think that we need to be kinder to ourselves, especially in relation to what I was just speaking about, and that is the fact that we do spend 9 to 10 months in the realm of creation. We're not here. It looks like we're here to everyone else, but we're
Mm.
actually not. We're not in this realm. We leave to create, and we are the bridge. So once we give birth and our baby is earthside, it's like that, that feeling when you like people go
Yeah.
abroad for like months and months and months, and they finally fly back to their own country and have to integrate back into life, and they get really depressed. It's like
Yeah.
that but on steroids, right? So it's like you're literally integrating, operating and living in this 3D world again after being in like what most people look at as fucking wonderland. Like the creation is limitless, and all of a sudden it's like you just in your back, and it's like you actually need to integrate back into that. And I think that we are so hard on ourselves, and we beat ourselves up so much for not being that exuberant, high energy, person who's just given birth and like super mom, and like just, give yourself a break and acknowledge like what you've just been through, because what you
Yeah.
have been through is something so incredible. Okay. I just feel like I needed to kind of touch on that a bit, because I know that I've beaten myself up in the past, and it wasn't until I actually understood where I went during that time, and the fact that I actually had to come back. And it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing, and it takes so much time to adjust back into your basic ass human experience after that,
With a
right?
whole baby to look after.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, give yourself a break and be kind to yourself. Anyone who's listening who has been through that, or maybe is moving through that right now, just know that you're going through such a huge adjustment. And once you realize and learn that where you actually go when you're pregnant and you actually have to come back, it's huge, right?
Yeah, totally. That reintegration phase is so
Mm,
important to take slowly. Even when you are at the beginning of pregnancy, I think that integration phase, we should not put pressure on it to be fast because it's just
yeah, or
not the
picture
way.
perfect.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
I think that's a good note to leave on. And I'm so glad we had this
absolutely.
conversation. I'm so curious to hear from the community. Yeah, one, if you have any weird traits after being pregnant and that maybe you've picked up from your significant other, and also what you've learned throughout your pregnancy journeys, what's come up for you, maybe the spiritual lessons that you've learned. I think it'll be really fascinating to hear. But as always, you can catch us Monday morning, 9 a.m. You can find us over on Instagram at the Finally Human Podcast. We would love to hear from you. So, of course, use that voice note function. Otherwise, if you know somebody who would really benefit from hearing from this, if you have a pregnant friend or a mum who is going through, the motherhood journey, send this to them. We'll give them a warm hug. And we really, really appreciate you being here. And we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.